Who the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
Yes. It's that time of the night on Late Night Sports Radio. Welcome to the FantasyGreek.com's NFL Football Power Hour. I'm your host, Jim Saranteas of the FantasyGreek.com, and I'm joined by our producer from 87sportsfans.com, the lovely Keith Grieve. Keith, how are you tonight?
Wow, I'm lovely now?
You're lovely now. Yeah,
wow.
You've gotten better looking since Monday, apparently.
You might be the first person to ever say that about me, but hey, thanks. I'm great. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Exciting times. We've had a bit of news today from the Buccaneers as well as from the Broncos. We'll try and touch on that towards the end of the show. But tonight we've got a special guest on the FantasyGreek.com's NFL Football Power Hour. Today in the first half of the show, everyone, we'll be talking exclusively about the NFL Draft and NFL Draft picks with Dan Shonka of Our Lads NFL Scouting Services. Then in the second half of the show, we'll pick up where we left off in our free agent segment called Keep 'em or Forget 'em, or Keep 'em or Cut 'em, whatever you want to call it, and then touch on a few of the news items in the past few days. And just a reminder, if you're listening live and you have any questions or comments, feel free to give us a call at 585-633-7487. That's 585-633-7487. Or you can tweet the Greek at hashtag AskTFG. That's hashtag AskTFG on Twitter. And remember, there is no such thing as a stupid question, only stupid answers. So with that being said, without further ado, I would like to welcome our guest tonight, Mr. Dan Shonka. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Thanks, Jim. My biggest concern is the lack of pre-show promotion. I know there's lots of great Twitter out there, so hopefully everybody heard that, and maybe we can pass on some knowledge.
Yeah, you know what, Dan? The people you saw for our listeners out there, we had just an onslaught of retweets of our social media Twitter promotion of the show. Dan, we've got 17 writers, and all of them stepped up when they heard you were going to be on the show and sort of tried to help the process out. So I'm so glad that we got you here and we were able to do that for you. Now, that all having been said, tell our listeners a little bit about Our Lads NFL Scouting Services and something I always find interesting, your experience as an NFL scout.
Well, I don't want to put everybody to sleep. They may be ready to go to bed, but we just we've been involved in this actually personnel work for the last over 40 years, and that started back in the days when I was at Iowa State as a student assistant under Earl Bruce, and where we're actually working recruiting, and I would work the East Coast first, and then we'd call recruits, and you're going out there looking for players stuff, then come back, and then you do the West Coast later. So we would grind on that back over 40 years. We've been involved in some sort of personnel work, and then we worked for National Football Scouting. I was a head coach actually before that, and was an assistant for about 8 years in major college level, and recruited and things at Kansas, Purdue, and Iowa State, and Rice University, and then moved on to pro football, and then been involved in the personnel work there for over 20-some years now. Started with National Football Scouting and went into the Eagles, and then the Redskins, and then the Chiefs. So, and then about 10 years ago, we took over Our Lads Scouting Services that Tom Hepler founded. It was over 35 years ago. In fact, it was kind of funny, Jim, that he was sending out the scouting books and things like that actually over fax machines when they first started 35 years ago. So, and he was one of the first. He was a big computer guy before all this computer analytics and stuff like that came about, and he actually was a troubleshooter for Motorola when the computers were like the size of a room. He'd go in there and So, but anyway, it's a lot of fun. We've always enjoyed the player personnel evaluation part of it, and every year, hey, you got a group of new guys, and we take a lot of pride in trying to get these guys right. We helped select the East-West All-Star game, and last year we had 19 guys that played in the game that didn't go to the combine. I know everybody gets disappointed when they don't get a chance to go to the combine stuff, but we had at least 19 guys that finished up on 53-man rosters that didn't go to the combine, and they weren't drafted and things like that. But so it just goes to show you that, hey, if you got some grit in you, you can still play.
Yeah, Dan, I love tooting your horn a little bit, if only because it's so interesting to me. Sometimes you're involved in helping personnel departments for teams. There's a dispute between the coaches and the scouts as to a player. My understanding is sometimes you'll get involved in that.
Right. Well, we get calls from different teams or general managers that know me that I either scouted with or I was on the road with or what have you, and all 32 teams subscribe to our services, and they call once in a while like if they get say for instance the coaches really like one guy, the scouts are they like him okay, but they're kind of lukewarm on him, and they'll kind of use me for a tiebreaker sometimes, and I don't know if they I don't get a check for that particular part of the tiebreaker, but that they at least ask my opinion about it because hey, we've been around so long, studying these guys that I guess longevity means something.
Absolutely, and we could go one of two ways with the show. I mean, we could keep talking about your background and talk about players and teams, scouting war stories. I plan on asking you one towards the end of the interview, but the other way I think we need to go is get to the heart of what our listeners are going to want to hear and just get to the point. So let me ask my first question, and it's this. It's very relevant to the times and some of the news that came out today for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I suppose regardless of any news that came out today about the Buccaneers, if you were a Buccaneers scout and Lovie Smith came up to you and said, hey, Dan, we need a quarterback with our first pick, who do I pick with the first overall pick in the draft and why?
Well, first of all, I assume, and I've done this for different teams. In fact, back when I was with Philadelphia, I had to look at all the quarterbacks. So when we drafted Donovan McNabb that year, and Tim Couch, was out there, and Achilles Smith was there, and there was about six. Culpepper, that group that came out in 1999, and I had to go see all those guys, and that question was asked by me after looking at all those guys, and I said Donovan McNabb's the guy, and in this case, I haven't had a chance to do my due diligence in person. Now studying on tape, and the reason Jameis Winston's got to be up there, at least in a discussion, is because his durability. The off-the-field stuff is very bothersome, no question about it, and that's going to be discussed, around the table, and I've been involved in those discussions on other players because, another year, I think it was '94, I want to say, in Philadelphia, my top guy was Warren Sapp. Okay, and they said, well, we're not taking Sapp because he has a, background as thick as a, Philadelphia phone book, and, we're not going to take him. And so that was that, but anyway, I think, once, you do your due diligence, and believe me, Jim, and listeners, hey, these guys are under the microscope like you can't believe them. There's former FBI agents that run different services that track all the information on these guys, and if the team decides to take the guy, with the background problems, then you get what you deserve because you've got all the information. You've got psychological tests. You've got personal interviews. An area scout should know Jameis for since he walked into Florida State, will know everything about him. The convenience store down the street. It doesn't. You're going to know all about this guy, and if they say, hey, he's okay from everything we've checked up, then and the owner, you talk to the owner and say, hey, then pull the trigger. You go for that guy. Now, it's easy Marcus Mariota, at least right now. I mean, you don't. I mean, the guy is a 5-star, 2 thumbs up, all that good stuff. A guy that you would love to have as your franchise leader. No question about it. Sometimes I tell you what, Jim, they say a leopard doesn't change his spots, and that's one that's kind of scary. A little bit about some of the off-field stuff that Jameis had. But one thing count on Mariota, I mean, here's a guy that's been solid. He doesn't miss meetings. He doesn't, football is important to him. He's a great family guy. He's focused. I mean, all that stuff. But you know what? There's been guys like that, and I've signed guys like that as free agents because that was important to me. And they end up playing a long time in the NFL, and that means something. But I'll tell you what, there's teams out there that say, hey, we've got to have a big, strong guy like Jameis Winston, and that's the guy we're taking.
That's sort of sounds like what some indications are coming out of the Buccaneers camp, that that's the player that they're leaning towards. Do you think that it matters much that Jameis Winston is basically coming from a school that has a pro-style offense as opposed to Marcus Mariota, who's coming more from a spread attack? Or you wouldn't necessarily consider that a factor?
Oh, it's a big factor because now, Jim, you're evaluating, apples to apples. In the NFL, there's a little pistol going on and a shotgun.
Due to technical difficulties, we now fast forward to slightly later in the broadcast.
Steelers, they got one. And there are teams out there that, I think they'd like to have one. It's a copycat league, and why not? So for those teams out there that are looking for one of these premier workhorse running backs, is there a prospect or two that you think might fit the bill and be capable of starting on day one?
Well, that's probably, Jim, the easiest position that a guy can come in and show his stuff right away. Now, last year, we saw the receivers that once they got rolling, whereas there's some years, receivers with all the learning they have to do have problems, but the running backs out there, God makes great running backs. I don't know if you coach those guys. Your vision and your feel. I've asked great running backs before. In fact, the Chicago running back, the greatest maybe of all time, Walter Payton. I asked Walter why he did. He says, I don't know. He says, that's just my eyes took me to the hole of my feet, and I've asked other running backs that, and it's their instincts and their running skills and their feel. And, but I think that, we like Melvin Gordon, and we were glad to see Wisconsin throwing the ball a little bit more this year. Obviously, Todd Gurley is your, beast running back with that 230-pound, frame on him. But, he's going to be out this year, basically, with that ACL. So, we're going to have to wait to 2016, I think, to see what he can do. Tevin Coleman over at Indiana, he's probably not on the national radar as much as he is on the, scouting radar that, people like his size. He's 6 foot and change. He's got a compact build, 210 pounds. He can really run. And if you want to see him break some long ones, throw on the Iowa tape sometime, you'll see him scoot 86 yards right down there. He had several long runs in other games. So, he's a guy that I think that is going to be on a lot of people's radar out there. T.J. Yeldon from Alabama runs a little high, but again, he's kind of a slasher that he kind of glides and flashes through there. Good football player. Duke Johnson at Miami of Florida. He broke in as a big time return guy, kickoff return guy there at Miami, and then has done some good things. And Amir Abdullah from Nebraska, he's more of a third down kind of back, Jim. And he's not. I'm with you. I like those big, strong running backs. Always have and things. Well, he's a little bit different. He'd have to be more complimentary to your big guy. But he certainly can make you miss in the open field. And if a line gets you by that first flow, it's your job to beat the first guy, and then get it into the third level and down the field, and that's something that he can do. So, but another guy with some size that I tell you, he reminds me a lot of Emmitt Smith, but he's injured. I tell you, his injury history bothers me a little bit, but he's got a lot of talent, and that's Mike Davis at South Carolina. You know, he's about 223, 225 pounds.